Hello and welcome to the latest Capital and Kayfabe. I am your co-host, JP John Boss from the Two-Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is the political pundit, the author, the journalist, the wrestling historian, Mr. Jack Hunter. Jack, welcome in. How you doing?
Good to be with you today. Excited about what we're going to talk about.
Man, there's so much in wrestling, but I feel like even before we get into a lot of interesting wrestling stories, the Israel peace deal. What's going on? Donald Trump has got some sort of peace deal, some sort of peace agreement. He was over in the Middle East. What is the latest? What's going on? And how could you break it all down for us?
Yeah, it's a big deal. I was frustrated with Donald Trump, who I voted for allowing the killing by Israeli's government to go on for as long as it did in Gaza. There was a ceasefire in the beginning of his second term, and then that just kind of went away. So we have this peace deal now where Hamas has released the hostages. They met with President Trump and went back to their families. And Israel's supposed to not be bombing and killing anymore in Gaza. And there's mixed reports about how much they're holding up their end of the agreement. But long story short, this is something Joe Biden would have never done as president. This is something Kamala Harris would have never done as president. It's a peace deal. Trump, after announcing the peace deal, and what I say, the biggest part of this, you could see Palestinians, particularly Palestinian children, jumping for joy that the carnage was stopping. Like, imagine being there and you're like just a poor person with no defense whatsoever, and another country's military is just barraging you every day, and you haven't done anything with anything. You're not part of Hamas or taking hostages or terrorizing anybody. You're just a 6-year-old girl, right?
Yep.
You see videos of those kids just celebrating that the carnage is over, and it's due to Trump. In Israel itself, there was some event. I think it was Steve Witkoff, which is Trump's special emissary in that region, speaking or something. But Netanyahu's name came up, and the Israelis booed him, and they started chanting Trump. This was right after the peace deal. So that gives you an idea of the temperature of some of the people in Israel. I'm talking about Israelis.
Yep.
So this is a huge deal. It would not have happened if Biden or Harris were president. They would have continued with the status quo and the U.S. funding this war, this genocide in Gaza. And Trump deserves credit, despite it maybe not happening sooner, but at least it's happening. I also like that when Trump announced this, he said to Iran, a peace deal is ready there. We're ready when you are. So sort of, giving outreach. And that made it, all the people who are mad at this peace deal with Israel, which is the neocons and some Democrats, were mad at Trump saying that too. So that's how you know it's a good thing. So we'll see.
Yeah, did that surprise Israel that he mentioned that about Iran too? Because that seems like maybe a little bit of a curveball there, maybe a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, the Israeli government, Netanyahu, the Likud party, their wish is for the United States to go to war with Iran and have regime change. And regime change wars have not gone so great in the 21st century for the United States, for people with short memories out there. But that's what Netanyahu wants. So when Trump's like, no, we can do a peace deal with Iran, what can those people get mad? Because they see the United States and our military as their tool. And that's messed up, because we should be America first, not Israel first or any other country first. If you're in this country and you're an American, we should be America first. And Trump's doing right by that promise with this deal and what he might do in the future. We'll see how this applies to Ukraine, Russia as well. But a good step by the president.
Seems kind of one of those things where it'll never happen. Peace in the Middle East, and we never even thought we'd get this far, even if we're only halfway there. I mean, no one ever even thought we'd even get close to this point either.
Right, and let's see if it holds up. It's just like the initial ceasefire when his second term began. It didn't hold up, but it was good for 2 weeks. Let's see this. Hopefully this is good for 20 years, 50 years, for infinity. But at least something's happened, and there's a reason for hope, instead of just the same old. The Israeli military is going to mow down some more children today. Let's give them food. Oh, they're rushing to get the food. Let's kill them. That's what they were doing. So that's ended for now, and that's good.
Crazy thing is, and we've talked about this many, many weeks ago on the show, a peace prize, a Nobel Peace Prize, may be in the works for Trump. I know maybe not this year because I think it was already voted upon, but is that a possibility if this thing holds up? Because it seems like, man, he's got to be up in the running for it.
It could happen in 2026. The award's already been given in 2025. If Barack Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize in 2008 for nothing more than I'm not George W. Bush and the Iraq war was stupid and I'm not going to do that. That's basically what his campaign message was. And I didn't vote for him, but I agreed with him. I voted third party, as I usually do. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for words, talking about Barack Obama. Donald Trump, to date, let's hope it lasts, has achieved a peace deal between Israel and Palestine. That is deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize because he actually brought about peace. He not just talked about it as Obama did.
One of those things where I feel like if that does happen, I feel like people's heads would explode. You know what I mean? Like they would be like, "What in the world?" You know what I mean? They would be shocked by this.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm a liberal in the small L sense. I believe that everybody has a different point of view. We should debate and talk and free exchange of ideas and free speech and all that. But there's a certain type of person in American politics that they would rather have Trump fail and 6-year-olds being blown up in Gaza than Trump succeed. What do you do with that? These are the same people who cheered when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. These are the same people when we learned that the Biden administration en masse was censoring users on Twitter say good. What do you do with that? Because liberals, if they're mad that Trump might get a Nobel Peace Prize for actually stopping slaughter and bloodshed, they're mad about that. I don't want to converse or talk. I don't want to deal with those people. I want to beat their ass in every election from here until the time I'm dead. Like, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? Like, you don't. You just beat them. That's crazy.
Kind of a really wacky thought process. When you really think about it, just common sense wise, it's like, wow, really? Like you guys are, kind of far out there with some of these thought processes that you guys are going through.
If socialist Bernie Sanders was president right now, who I disagree with politically on a lot, and he achieved this peace deal, I would be calling for a statue of Bernie Sanders to be erected somewhere, I guess in Vermont, for him achieving this. That's more important than how my tiny self feels about Bernie Sanders. That's not where a lot of people are. Trump derangement syndrome has poisoned so many people's brains. They don't even know how to think straight anymore.
Yeah, this deal, obviously monumental, couldn't get done forever. There was even, I don't remember her name, but she was on CNN saying that, oh, thanks to Biden, this deal went down. And obviously Fox News and the Post and everybody ripped her apart. But it was almost like, holy crap, like these people are kind of deranged. And so certain people are like deranged. They won't even admit like what really happened. They're like not even anywhere close to facts or factual.
1,000%. And you see the very small minority of honest, principled progressives out there saying, Biden, suck it. You had nothing to do with this peace deal. None of your people did. Anthony Blinken didn't have nothing to do with it. Get over yourself. You see Crystal Ball saying that. Certainly Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, Jimmy Dore went at length after these Democrat sycophants who were saying, oh, yeah, Biden had nothing to do with it. Biden could have done this at any time. Any American president of any party could have made Israel stop at any time, and it was Donald Trump who did it. He took too long. That's my criticism. This guy's not perfect. He took too long, but he at least did it. They didn't do it. They weren't going to try to do it. They're lying. They're full of it, and it bothers them. They know that the hardcore progressive left is against the U.S. fueling what's been happening in Gaza. They know that. That's part of their audience. So when this right-wing Republican president actually gets done what the progressive wing of their party has been clamoring for, they don't know how to process that. So they pretend that Biden had something to do with it when that's just stupid on its face.
Now, the Biden administration were spying on Republican senators. Was that a part of the Patriot Act, or was that some sort of illegal spying? What's your take on that?
So it was made possible by the Patriot Act and CISA and some of the FISA court stuff. The Patriot Act, I think it's Section 215, intelligence agencies can ask businesses to provide data, private data, on the flimsy of reasons. They could just make up anything, basically. It's pretty much free reign to spy on any of us at any given time by the government, which is why libertarian Republicans like Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, Mike Lee, have always voted against Patriot Act renewal. And the senators spied on, Lindsey Graham, Marsha Blackburn, Ron Johnson, all of them have voted to renew the Patriot Act every single time it's come up when they were in the House. That was primarily a House vote. They're all senators now. You reap what you sow. I don't feel sorry for any of these people. Like you Lindsey Graham, when Edward Snowden said in 2013 that Verizon, this was the first disclosure from what Snowden had to share with us as a whistleblower, is that Verizon was being forced by the U.S. government to share phone metadata of American citizens with the federal government. And that means, like, what time did you go to the store, John? How long did you use your phone? Did you contact your bank while you were on the phone? All this stuff that can be used to piece together information about your private lives, the government was gathering. When that happened, Lindsey Graham in committee said, I'm glad the NSA is listening to people's phone calls because we got to stop those terrorists. That's what Lindsey Graham said in 2013. He was glad that the federal give a damn about the Constitution, privacy rights, all that, and he was glad that it was spying on American citizens. Well, it just spied on you, Lindsey Graham, and now you're pissed off about it? To hell with you. No sympathy whatsoever. How about don't vote for the Patriot Act next time? That's the answer. He's not going to do it. He totally trusts the government and the power that he gives it more and more. He thinks that's a good thing. So, yeah, I have no sympathy for these senators who are upset about it now. They asked for it.
Yeah, one of those things where, man, you kind of reap what you sow there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You wanted the Patriot, you wanted the spying, and then they spy on you, and then obviously they go crazy about it. But they don't do that to anybody. They don't spy on anybody, and they're maybe not.
Yeah, and you have to. So, like, when the Patriot Act was passed in the confusing and terrifying days and weeks after 9/11, it was passed about 3 or 4 weeks after the 9/11 attacks as a tool to go after ostensibly foreign extremists, Islamic terrorists. That was the idea, and everybody was scared, so they just went along with it, except for Russ Feingold. He was the senator, the Democrat senator in the Senate at the time. He was the only person to vote against it. But people went along with it. By the time we get to the Tea Party in like 2009, 2010, talking about the right-wing movement that was for smaller government, this was the Obama era, we learned that the DHS is spying on Tea Party groups. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And a lot of these people in the Tea Party who were at one time Bush Republicans and thought the Patriot Act lived up to its name and was a wonderful thing were like, wait, they're using that to spy on us in our church group, in our PTA meeting. And like, that's when sort of conservatives started to wake up. And now that we are where we are now, and you see what Biden's doing, it's a conservative default position to be like, no, the intelligence agency shouldn't be able to spy on American citizens. That's not where we were in the Bush era. That's where we are in the Trump era. And you have Democrats in the Biden era being like, hell yeah, we're going to use this to spy on all these MAGA extremists because they think we're all terrorists and, whatever. So it's funny how the politics change over time.
Now, Tucker Carlson's got that new 5-part series, the 9/11 Files, which kind of break down maybe why the Patriot Act was used to begin with. Was it a government cover? I mean, he goes more into depth than we're going to go in here, but it's just interesting that's brought up there as well. It's like maybe there was a reason why 9/11 happened and then the Patriot Act happened so they can legally spy and you don't even question it and, things like that.
Yeah, and even my former boss, Senator Rand Paul, I mean, over a decade ago was like, we had a lot of information that was not examined. Like we had information about what Al-Qaeda were up to and Osama bin Laden was up to that the agencies not communicating with each other in the right way. It was ignored. And that's not good. That's bad. Yeah. And nobody got fired for intelligence failures on 9/11. Nobody got in trouble. I mean, you had the victims of the actual 9/11 attack, but nobody in government with the means or knowledge to possibly stop it or do their freaking job got punished or fired or anything. That's how government works.
Crazy. That's like, the New York Yankees not making the playoffs and keeping Aaron Boone, but they did. They kept him. And so sometimes, this is 2 years ago, but, a couple crazy organizations out there, they just don't operate the way you should be operating normally.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what is the latest on the government shutdown? Do we know anything? Is there any movement? Have there anything been going on as far as this? Because it seems like Rand Paul's kind of saying nobody's even noticing that it's shut down,
right?
Which is a good thing.
That's what I was going to say. The last time you and I spoke, we were talking about the government shutdown. It had already been happening, a week and a half, 2 weeks, or whatever it was. Yep. Now we're in week 3 or whatever it is before, by the time some people see this. Yeah, Rand Paul is right. So a lot of these government agencies, the people are out of work, but life goes on. I ain't trying to fire people, but do we need those agencies? At $37 trillion in national debt, do we need that? Is be like, hey, maybe we don't need this. maybe we say, hey, in 6 months, you better have a different job. Something kind of like that. I don't know, but like, he's right. Like, this is just, the federal government is totally unaccountable. It's just a sprawling labyrinth of our tax dollars going to God knows what. And I'm not saying that all of it is unnecessary, but I would say a vast majority of it probably is. Then again, I'm a libertarian. I'm a minarchist, technically. That's what Thomas Jefferson was. I'm not an anarchist. Some of my anarchist friends would get mad at that. But I believe that if you actually got rid of government, it'd take about 3 seconds for 5 people to get together and have some conversations that look something like government. So it's best to keep it as small as possible. That's what a minarchist is. So for the government shutdown, I say we get rid of 95% of this crap and move forward. That's not going to happen, but that's what I would wish for.
And I don't know if this is true or not, but is it coming out and leaking out, and Speaker Johnson leaking out like what on the Schumer shutdown, like what they want in order to come back? Is all that true? Is the factual, like the LGBTQ stuff for Afghanistan, like is all that stuff true? I know we were talking about it at one point, but is that actually all the stuff?
Democrats think if you slice anything, and conservatives and right-leaning people like to point out the most absurd things, and they're right. And I would join them in doing that, like some LGBT Spanish translation in Argentina course or something, whatever. I'm just making up stuff, but that's basically what these programs sound like. There's that, but then a major holdup for the Democrats and why people are calling this the Schumer shutdown is Democrats are insisting on free health care for illegal aliens. And most Americans aren't down with that, and certainly most Republicans aren't. And that's a big sticking point as well.
Man, it's like a radical left kind of like nutty stuff. You know what I mean? Like some of the stuff that Speaker Johnson read and a lot of the other senators are talking about, and maybe even leaked out to certain newspapers and certain outlets and stuff. It's just like crazy, some of that stuff. I mean, we were talking about it's got to be some sort of money laundering. It's just so insane. Some of the stuff doesn't even make sense. Like, hey, Yemen needs a trans education, and like, wait, what? No, what? They don't they don't believe any of that stuff or whatever. It's like, oh, Afghanistan needs number 2 pencils, $24 million worth. It's just like some of the stuff on the list. I'm being exaggerated, but some of the stuff on the list is insane.
It's totally insane, but that's where the Democratic Party is right now. The coalition that elected Barack Obama in 2008 would not recognize the Democratic coalition now. And I'm talking about mainstream Democratic Party, not just the fringes. They've replaced, they're a mixture of neoconservatism, which is pro-war, authoritarianism with censorship and the federal government bullying people around. And also they've replaced their religion of identity politics. They replaced the old socioeconomic working class concerns of older generations of Democrats. The kind of stuff that Bernie Sanders actually still talks about. But now it's just like, oh, am I gay? Am I brown? Am I a woman? Am I a woman that used to be a woman? Or like that's right. More important to them than like, oh, working class family in Michigan can't put food on the table. How can we get jobs or better trade deals? Like that was the old Democrats. Now it's like, oh, does that working class family have a little boy that wants to be a little girl? That's their main concern. And to most Americans, that's freaking weird. Let's bring this back to wrestling a little bit. So I have one closer, but 2 friends who identify they're transgender people. They're my friends. I might have feelings about what that is, but I think they're coming from a real place and they're my friends. Okay, cool. When I see CM Punk or Hangman Page wear a shirt that says protect trans kids, I know I'm going a little off script here, but I wanted to relate to wrestling. What does that mean? Oh, that's good. I want to protect anybody that's vulnerable, right? That's a good thing to protect people. Does that mean there's a little boy somewhere, he's a girl, and other kids are picking on him at school? It could mean that. And maybe that's not cool that kids are picking on that kid. Does it also mean I have super weird ass lefty parents and I'm 6 years old and they're telling me I'm the opposite sex of what I am, and I'm a little kid, I don't know anything about that, and we're talking about puberty blockers and surgery? Is that protecting trans kids? No, it sounds like you're abusing your child who's not old enough to understand any of this stuff.
Right.
The point I'm making is Democrats make these broad statements, something like, and I remember Punk's one of my favorite wrestlers, protect trans kids. You'll see the fans with signs, maybe they're wearing a mask or something. Protect. Okay, well, what the F does that mean? If two parents are like, oh, our teacher at school is telling our kid that he's actually the opposite sex and wants to, prevent us from him not having puberty blockers, is that who's protecting trans kids? And you see my point. That's where the mainstream Democratic Party is right now. And that relates to the government shutdown and programs like that. That's insanity. Normal people, and I don't mean straight people, I'm talking about just people, normal morality, like, no, that's craziness. But that's part of the equation of democratic identity and what they're talking about, the programs they want to protect with the government shutdown. I know I did a roundabout there, John, and a long way to get there, but it's all part of the same conversation.
Makes sense. It's so broad. It's like, protect them from what exactly? From you? You know what I mean? Yeah, you don't quite know.
I have one trans friend, biological male. She would be the first to tell you she's a biological male, was in the U.S. military, but I respect where she is now. She's conservative and she hates all this trans ideology crap. She just wants to be left alone. She's just like, yeah, she writes for conservative publications and works with conservative organizations, but whatever. And, I have my own opinions about that, but hell, I don't care. If you're happy, go do what you want to do. But like, I think it's funny that like, she's just like, stop it. Like, leave me alone. Just let me be. I don't like, there was a poll I saw advertised, John, the last 2 or 3 days, that among teenagers, those who are identifying as trans has gone down like 30% in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, interesting.
Because it's a fad. The people who actually have this gender dysphoria thing, they've always been with us, but it's a very minute part of the population. Very small. I mean, if gay men and women are a smaller population than straight, which they are, trans is a whole nother level of minuteness. What you've seen in recent years is it's a fad to want to be trans. Who aren't old enough to know anything about anything to say, oh, I'm that. And then after a while, it's just like, this is stupid. And then it goes down. It's not a matter of, oh, these kids were actually trans. Now the polls have gone down. It was a bunch of people saying things that weren't true because they thought it was in style. And adults playing into that, which is shameful.
Yes. Common sense there, Jack. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's very, very true and very, to me, obvious, but not to others.
Right.
So, now, as far as you obviously you were in Jacksonville not that long ago. You're at AEW right now. It's funny. I was just talking to a buddy of mine, and I was like, I don't know if I like where they're headed. I'm not a huge, and we've talked about this, I'm not a huge Hangman Adam Page fan. I'm more of like an MJF. When he was champion, I was more into it. Like, it just depends. Like, a huge Samoa Joe fan, so him being a title picture got me interested. But I'm almost like I don't think Joe has a chance at the title. So what do you think right now about current AEW? I know Wrestle Dream is coming up too, but what do you think about the current state of AEW and the current card coming up for
I like the product. Look, I have a certain affection for AEW because when they came along, WWE was so bad in 2019.
Yeah.
And as a lifelong wrestling fan, you kind of feel abused and victimized is a weird word, especially based on what I just said. But like, it's like, come on, guys, give me something. Care about this halfway as much as I do. But that's not what WWE was giving. Was a lifesaver for wrestling fans. Where they're at right now, I don't think it's the top of where they've been, but I like where they're at. I am a big Hangman Page fan for 2 reasons. I just like him. I like what he's about. I like the buckshot lariat. I like the cowboy S, all that kind of stuff. I also, as a kid who remembers my mom coming into my bedroom when Magnum TA wrapped his Porsche around a telephone pole in 1986 and saying, hey, that wrestler you like was in an accident. And I was a big fan of Dusty and Magnum and what they were doing, rock and roll, and he never got to do it. People compare Hangman Page to Magnum TA, so there's a little bit of my Jim Crockett 80 self with Hangman, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you.
I like the product. I don't think Joe's going to win. I don't think anybody else thinks that, but I like that they're going to feed him somebody who's believable, who's a former world champion, has been champion, and feasibly could, but it's okay. Every pay-per-view doesn't need to be a title switch. If every pay-per-view the world champion was somebody else, that would suck. So yeah. It is what it is. I'm looking forward to Wrestle Dream. The Hurt Syndicate, when we're talking here today, I just watched Dynamite last night. It was the long Dynamite with the collision tacked on the end because Saturday's Wrestle Dream. The Hurt Syndicate's awesome. I like what they're doing with the Gates of Agony. I'm trying to think of other stuff. MJF hasn't been on TV for a little bit. God knows
No.
what's going on with Britt Baker. I'm a big fan of hers. We'll see what company she ends up in if she stays with AEW. But yeah, my favorite tag team's FTR. They're not doing anything with them right now. They're on the pre-show for Wrestle Dream. I don't like that. I like Jet Speed. I'm just thinking of different AEW things that I really like. Tony Storm's the face of that. With Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland out of commission for a little bit, I think Tony's like their top person, and that's great. I could see Tony beating Chris Statlander and getting that belt right back. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure what's going on with that. I'm kind of like curious on that as well, and kind of what direction that that they're going to be going with that, because that was kind of a weird direction to begin with. I thought it would almost keep going the way it was going. You know what I mean? Like I thought that would just keep riding it out for a while.
And Chris Statlander on the Dynamite I just saw probably delivered one of the best promos I've ever seen. She's not really known for great promos, in my opinion.
No, not usually.
Tony Storm is like that's half of it, if not more. But I thought Chris Statlander did a good job. Mercedes Moné's kind of flat to me right now. It's not that I dislike her. It's just like, what are we doing here?
But it's one of those things where, like, if Tony Storm is the biggest star, I know you're trying to get another person over, but wouldn't it be better if they were feuding for a little bit and then Statlander won it, rather than she wins it in like a 4-way and then they feud again? You know what I mean? Wouldn't it be better for Statlander if she beat her 1-on-1 and then she got the push? Like, this pay-per-view starts going forward? It just seemed like backwards booking.
Yeah, I agree. Because Tony wasn't pinned, right?
No, I don't think she was either. So I guess now she probably will be, or maybe they'll give her the title. I don't know. I'm unpredictable.
Tony feels like the performer that needs to be like the 13-time AEW Women's Champion kind of stuff. So that means you got to lose it a bunch too. So maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. But Tony's undeniably the star. They've got a show coming up in San Antonio, a Dynamite, not too long from now. I wonder if maybe we see a reemergence of Thunder Rosa, who was and still could be a top star for them, in my opinion, right there with Britt Baker. Mercedes is, but I don't know about what they're doing with her right now. Tony's undeniably the woman in that division that's at the top of the chain for sure. It's
one of those things where, like, did they think she was getting booed because she was champ for too long? I don't know. I didn't know the thought process behind losing.
Yeah, that's like people in WWE wanting Cody to turn heel. It's like, if it ain't broke, don't, like, what are we talking about? Like, little kids are dressing up like you, and that's the reason they're begging their parents to buy a ticket. Like, Tony is doing what she's doing as champ without the belt. She doesn't need the belt, but she certainly is the person to run with it as the top person. Don't change that. And I don't think they will. I don't think Tony Khan's that foolish.
Just seems like AEW lost some momentum. Like the houses seem like they're a little bit down. I know they're going into some small arenas too, so the pay-per-views usually draw pretty well. But just like Dynamite and Collision seem a little bit down. Then the ratings from the Tuesday night, quote-unquote, Tuesday night wars between NXT, really half TNA, but NXT versus AEW. NXT won pretty good. I know that's not their normal night. They're not normally on Tuesday night, but Tuesday night war, NXT came out pretty ahead. I'm kind of surprised by that.
Significantly ahead. And I like the AEW show more than I like the NXT show that night. There was more hoopla and pomp and circumstance around the NXT show for sure. But I was live at the Tuesday Dynamite show too. So there's that maybe. But and I guess the way they've changed the rating systems, you can't read too much. It's really different. Meltzer's talked about this, that it's just a whole different thing where both companies are a lot worse off ratings wise because of how they've changes or whatever.
Yeah, they supposedly improve the accuracy. So it's big data plus panel, which means that they're getting a bigger size, if you will, bigger audience size, what they're getting for, instead of taking a smaller sample and timesing it, they're taking a bigger sample and putting it out that way. So I still don't know if it improved the accuracy or not, but they're still in the top 6, I believe, every week. So it seems like everything is down almost, it seems like.
That's my understanding as well. Like, major sports is even lower than it was based on what they're doing. And that for wrestling fans that look at ratings, and I do, it's an important metric. You need to take that into consideration. Just the same as Cornette going on about, I was in WWE. If we got below 4 million, we'd be fired. It's like, that was 1998 and whatever.
When there
Like,
was only a few things or less things on TV for sure.
right.
But the thing is, well, you got to take, not to give them excuses or anything, AEW or WB or NXT, just to put it out with a grain of salt, it's not covering every system either. So if you actually look into it, it's not every. So let's say you have Verizon. I don't know if Verizon necessarily is covered, but I saw Comcast Xfinity is. So it's like, well, what happens if you're taking a bigger sample size, but you're not counting every cable system? Then that kind of changes things too. So I don't know how accurate it is necessarily to the whole entire audience.
Well, so if we're talking about AEW numbers, so they're not looking at Max?
Nope.
That's stupid. I watch it on Max every week, and lots of people do. I
know. I for some reason sometimes it doesn't record on my Sling. I know we talked about this once before.
Yeah,
you can record, so I'll watch it on Max. I'm like, well, I'm not being counted this week. I'm not being counted.
Yeah, and I watched NXT on Netflix with my VPN in Canada.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm sure that's not counted. So there you go. And how many people do you think have bought VPNs with this whole ESPN WWE arrangement? I know when I listened to Busted Open and Dave LaGreca's expressing his frustration with this ESPN platform. What's Baron Corbin's name? Bishop
Dyer.
Whatever. Baron. Yeah. He says, well, I don't know about that. I've got VPN. He doesn't have those problems, which is what I have. I watch all WWE programming on Netflix in another country, not the US.
Right. VPN. That's the way to do it. It's crazy though with my ESPN app, and obviously I'm in the minority here, but at first I was confused as hell. I have for the kids, I have ESPN or Disney and Hulu, so I just added ESPN. It was super easy. I just added the triple bundle. They gave me money off. They actually gave me a few dollars off each month for it too, because I already had Disney and Hulu. So however that math works out, it actually worked out pretty good for me as far as getting the bundle. But I like it, especially watching the college football games. They had all a ton of games on Saturday. So I like the ESPN app, and I thought it was super easy just as far as pay-per-view. Okay. I literally turned it on. It was the first thing. It said Crown Jewel. I'm like, whoop, watch. Okay, I'll watch it now.
Okay. Well, I haven't used it because I went straight to VPN.
Right,
he was complaining about the ability to rewind, like that function. I know on Peacock, when WWE was on Peacock, I was so frustrated about that same function, but even more so, if I got home from doing something at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night and wanted to start watching the PLE that had started at 7 or 8, I had to wait to midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning before they even got that thing up. I don't know if ESPN's the same way. I know with VPN, whether it's in the middle of the PLE or it's been an hour since it ended, I could go straight to Netflix, Canada, or UK, and it's there and available. It's not a problem. I don't know if ESPN has the same hangups in the way that Peacock did with that.
The thing is, for me, I found it easy because me and my son went to go see the new Tron movie. So that was, I guess, somewhat middle of the morning that we left. Okay. So I watched up until the main event. So I stopped there on ESPN. When I came back home in the afternoon, I put it back on. I just had to, it's a, watch from the beginning, blah, blah. So I hit watch from the beginning. I just fast forwarded to the part where I left off. So I'm not sure about the rewind, but I definitely know you can fast forward.
And you can play from the beginning.
Yes.
That's how Netflix is. Peacock did not have that function. I would literally rewind it and hide my face so I didn't spoil what was going on. Have a rewind.
Right. Yes. Yes.
But Netflix, and it sounds like ESPN has, you play whatever's going on live or just happened and then stop it and then play from the beginning, which is fine.
Yep.
Okay. One more thing, and I feel like I'm giving people free advertising. Using the Triller app on VPN in other countries, you could get 2 AEW pay-per-views for $65.
Oh, you get a discount there.
Yeah. Because remember, Triller, when Triller still ran them in the U.S., you could get 2 for $80, which is a $20 discount between the two. That's good. $65, so a $35 discount on two $50 pay-per-views on Triller. That's pretty cool. In another country. And the Bound for Glory pay-per-view, I didn't find this out till I paid $40, but you can get it for $35. It's a slight discount.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously with Crown Jewel on ESPN, if you have the bundle like me, I'm paying less than $30 because they gave me some discount. But you mean essentially $30 for Disney, Hulu, and ESPN, then you get all the WWE pay-per-views essentially for a third of the price what you're paying because you get the other apps too. So it's kind of an interesting way, but it just seems like a lot of money's being spent out there, and even with TNA, a lot of money's being spent out there.
For sure. And I had, and this is going to sound insulting, I don't mean to be that way. When I paid $40 for Bound for Glory, I know I'm going to pay $40 for Wrestle Dream this weekend. I'm like, I like TNA. I'm ordering this for a reason. I don't feel like they're on par with AEW as far as me paying $40 for each. When I was paying $50 for AEW and $40 with TNA, mentally I was like, all right, it's $10 less.
Right.
But the same amount, in principle, I had a problem with that. And I'm not trying to insult anybody at TNA. I like the product, but it's just apples and oranges, in my opinion.
And even with Bound for Glory, I was hearing some complaints about some of the matches. They didn't like it. They didn't like some of the finishes, and some of the people who won the X Division match between Slater and Evans. People weren't happy, even though the match was great because of Dark State interference. Hardy's, Dudley's started out off good and maybe didn't end up so good. With just as far as maybe the advanced age or what was going on in the match, it just kind of progressively slowed down. A lot of people didn't like the finish with Bully Ray, his quote unquote storytelling of the finish, where they didn't appreciate that story. And then obviously they liked the finish with Mike Santana, but it was kind of like 50-50 what I was reading, what people liked and didn't like it. Yeah,
let's talk about pros and cons. I watched the whole show. I was eager to watch it. I really like what TNA's doing right now. I love the WWE/NXT partnership. Pros for Bound for Glory. Mike Santana won. He better have, and he did. And that was great. That's what needed to happen. He beat Trick Williams, bringing the TNA title back home. Pros. There were 7,000 people in that building for a TNA show. Awesome. Yep. I love seeing that many people for TNA. I've only seen TNA 2 or 3 times in my lifetime, and it wasn't 7,000 people there. Cons. Love the Hardys. Love the Dudleys. That match was not what it would have been 20 years ago, and probably reasonably nobody should have expected it to be. Devon Get the Tables looked a lot different in 2025 than it did in 2005 or whenever, if you catch my drift. I'll kind of leave it at that. Javon Evans and Leon Slater as a wrestling match was the match of the night. The finish sucked. Dark State ran out. Santino gave them 5 more minutes, and then Dark State messed that up. When they were actually wrestling, it was magic. Those 2 young men, they should be main eventers right now. I agree with, Brian Alvarez rants about like every other sport in the world values its young athletes and promotes them and puts them in, important spots. In pro wrestling, we have this attitude like, oh, they're only 21. We have to wait. It's like, why?
Yeah. Why? Yeah.
Athletic young men, you go, no, let's capitalize on this starting now. Like, What are we talking about? The match was great. TNA booking wise can say neither man won, and they can promote another match down the line between these two. And many fans are going to want to see it, including me. But if you paid $40 for the show, you kind of wanted to see somebody win, right? And that didn't happen. I thought that Javon Evans was going to be the new X Division champion. That would have been awesome for both companies. It would not have taken away anything from Leon Slater, who could have won it right back in the near future. So
right, you just get your win back, if you will.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. So obviously there's that show. There was Crown Jewel too, which obviously the Seth Rollins injury now kind of being the big story, and Braun Breaker turning on Seth. So that's like the big story. But Rollins did get the big win. He cheated with the watch and the double stomp.
Yeah.
But he does get the win. So it was one of those pay-per-views where I liked it, but people in line were complaining about some things.
I thought it was a decent show. To me, Cena and AJ stole the show, and they had some good wrestling in that. But it was about the tribute to all their opponents, a love letter to wrestling kind of stuff. I mean, I never thought I'd be watching a WWPLE and AJ Styles would be wrestling John Cena and paying tribute to Christopher Daniels. Like, I knew it immediately with the Angel's Wings as he did. I was like, that is awesome. And certain fans wouldn't even got that, but I'm of a certain age and whatever. That was great. But I thought it was a good show. Obviously, the Raw follow-up, we saw Braun Breaker turn on Seth. We hear that Seth Rollins, that's a good way to do that. My understanding is that this was going to happen maybe waiting all the way till next year, 2026, but they expedited it because of Seth Rollins' injury. I think it's cool. I can't wait to see the next Raw, to hear what Braun Breaker has to say, or Paul Heyman, and probably not see Seth Rollins for a little bit, which is what I think they're going to do, but we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully the injury isn't too bad where he's going to be out for a while. That sucks. They were kind of building the momentum of the group there, and obviously it didn't seem like it was quite ready for the turn as of yet, although they kind of dropped some seedlings along the way, but it just didn't seem like it was quite ready for it. And it seemed like Heyman might not even have been ready for it. Breaker kind of did that on his own.
Yeah, and Heyman had like a funny face about it, and then Bronson Reed joined in because Braun Breaker put that ultimatum to him, you're either with me or get out of here kind of thing. And then at the end, Paul Heyman was raising their hands over a defeated Seth Rollins, a beaten Seth Rollins, and Paul Heyman's face obviously was approving of this new realignment with the Vision, which is a name I really never liked to begin with, but I did like the group.
So you got that going on. Well, obviously in the WWE world, a lot of questions, which is sometimes good. Like the confusion of like, wait, what the hell just happened? Sometimes that could be good and kind of see where they're going. Sometimes it's not good, but this could lead to something because I love Braun Breaker, so it could lead to him being the next champion. So that could be good.
And Breaker's a young man, and they're pushing him now. Good.
Yep.
That's what you should do. Yep. You don't need to wait till he's 37 years old to be like, all right, now's the time to pull the trigger. Going back to Leon Slater and Javon Evans, but yeah,
right.
I like all of this. Takes nothing away from Seth Rollins. CM Punk's the number one contender. I don't know what this is going to look like. Obviously, they were going to bring him back to Seth Rollins and do that feud, but things change.
Yep, definitely. So just a couple quick hitters here about AEW. Interesting stuff. Andrade might not be debuting as the 90-day compete clause that people were saying was MIA, but I think MIA because of the 90-day non-compete because WWE. He gets released, fired, whatever you want to say, but there's a 90-day time period where he can't be in AEW, and he already showed up. So there's a cease and desist letter. So he cannot be in AEW as of yet.
And if he honestly thought that he had a 90-day non-compete, I don't think he or AEW would have ever done that. I think there was confusion. They wouldn't risk the liability.
Yes.
So it is what it is. He re-debuted in AEW. Now you're not going to see him for 3 months, I guess. Yep. I don't know. So that's pretty wild.
Kota Ibushi, broken femur. The rumor timetable of injury, 2 years.
2 years. Well, I was there in person when this happened, and I was with my girlfriend and another gentleman who was old, who was a fan that we just kind of, how you go to shows and you talk to people next to you and you kind of get to know each other.
Oh, yeah.
When Josh Alexander and Ibushi were on the top rope, the turnbuckle, and Ibushi fell, the man next to me goes, that wasn't supposed to happen. And that's how I felt too. It just looks weird. And we couldn't really see how he hit the floor. We just saw the fall, which looked weird. And now we learned that he's going to be out for 2 years. I think he's 42 or 43 years old.
43, yeah. Surprised. Yeah. He looks like he looks like 30 years old. I mean,
he does. Yeah. And if you're out for 2 years, 45 is not too old to be in wrestling, but I don't know. Just something to think about. It'd be different if he was 33, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. And another interesting AEW note here. Inosuke Takeshita is the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So it looks like he's not necessarily full-time AEW. So, I mean, this helps New Japan, obviously.
It helps New Japan, and I think it helps Takeshita's stock in AEW, too. This guy's got it all. He's got the star power. He, Kata are bigger Japanese guys. Let's start with that, physically. Just like with the luchadors, if you're a larger Latino, that you're head and shoulders literally above so many other people of your ethnicity. Same with Japanese. Takeshi's a big, badass dude who can wrestle great and speaks enough English to get by in our own country and just has that it factor. I love that he's the New Japan champion. New Japan needs stars. He beat Zack Sabre Jr., who's like the star they've had that hasn't gone anywhere, as so many others have gone to other places and are doing other things. I love it. I think it helps all the companies all around. And the relationship between AEW and New Japan, just like their relationship with CMLL, it needs to be a give and take. So you got this big AEW star who's in the Don Callis family. He's going to be the world champion for a little bit. He probably likes being back home for a little bit too, I would imagine.
Very interesting little side thing here. Vince McMahon will be in court for the reckless driving, going 90, supposedly swerving, as we know from Jim Cornette and Jim Ross and Bruce Pritchard and a ton of other guys, Russo, a bunch of other guys that have driven with Vince. Never drive with Vince. He's a terrible driver. He's a reckless driver. So now he's actually going to court for reckless driving. Obviously, 3-car crash. He ruined his own car. Just an interesting thing. I saw a video of him going to court. There were fans, not a lot, but there were fans waiting outside. He was signing autographs for the fans. So he's baby facing all the way. Yeah, look at him. I'm a baby face signing autographs.
And I saw that. I wasn't surprising, wrestling fan. If all this controversy didn't happen, I'd be excited to meet with Vince McMahon. He's the guy who gave me most of the things I liked about my wrestling fandom in my childhood. Did you notice his hair? So he's gotten rid of the weirdo mustache, but the front of a gray pompadour. He's always kind of had sort of a pompadour, but right here is gray and the rest is black. Did you notice that?
I think he forgot to dye it. That was my thing. I think it's like
No, just that one piece of his hair, because the rest is black. It's almost like
fashion choice, maybe.
It's almost like a hipster. Like when I was playing music, I had a blonde streak in my hair at one point that the lady just did. It looked like something like that. Like his 80-year-old ass was trying to be a hip dude with this is gray, this is black.
I just assumed he forgot to dye his whole hair. He's getting old, but maybe he's turning
just
into
one part, right?
Yeah.
Fans were getting autographs, and I think he beat the reckless driving. I think he has to pay a fine and go to a class or something. So we know what that looked like.
Yep. So he beat it, if you will, but obviously he's got all the money in the world. You knew he wasn't going to be in too much trouble there.
Right, for sure.
All right, so let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. You follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. How about you, Jack?
You can find me on X, formerly Twitter, Jack Hunter74. Anything about wrestling or politics that I'm doing, you'll find it there.
All right. Great show today, Jack. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. We'll see you right back here next time for Little Capital and Kayfabe.